Hey, I'm Sith King.
And I'm Sonic Sons.
And we're the Rambling Reviewers.
And today we're looking at a good movie, The Wind Rises.
Yeah. Okay, so it starts off in Gotham City, where Bruce Wayne has been out of action for 8 years.
No.
When Catwoman breaks into his house...
No.
Wait, that's The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
No, they're so similar movies.
No, really not.
Come on. What about the part where Jiro decided to put on the costume again after years of not wearing it?
That didn't have it. So The Wind Rises is by Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli, or Ghibli, or Ghibli, or depending on what
It's a
language you're going
Miyazaki
with.
film.
It's a Miyazaki film. Supposedly his last.
But he's honestly said this about like 6 other movies.
Yeah.
So
Though it becomes more likely to be true every time he says it, because he keeps getting older, or last I checked.
Well, until we, take his brain out of his body and implant it in the cyborg body.
Well, that would be weird. So anyway.
Yes, that would be weird. The rest of his movies, totally normal.
Anyway.
Okay, pardon. I need to move this.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
We are moving furniture. Imagine. All right. So this is all about Jiro freaking his last name. What was his last name?
Japanese last name that I can't remember, but it starts with H.
Right. That's... who is a designer of a very famous Japanese fighter plane
Called the Zero.
The Zero.
It's the
Horikoshi. That's it. Jiro Horikoshi.
It's the primary fighter plane used in World War II.
By the Japanese.
Well, obviously.
He designed it for some other country.
He designed it for
the Americans. That'd be really fun, actually.
Oh, son of a... The one thing that didn't crash. Everything he built crashed in this
Except
movie.
the Zero. But yeah, he did have a lot of stuff he built that crashed one way or the other.
Everything. His marriage crashed and burned.
No, that's not the same thing. You
okay,
just narrow it down to the airplanes.
Okay, well, every
he
single
built a
thing
lot of
crashed.
his paper airplane crashed at first, and the first thing they were testing, the strut did not actually break. The rest of it did. And whatever. But so Miyazaki was said to be inspired to make this film when he heard a quote from the real life Jiro Horikoshi, was said, "I just wanted to make something beautiful." And Miyazaki's always loved airplanes and flying in general. And
See also pretty much every single Miyazaki film.
Pretty much.
Aside from Princess Mononoke. That one actually didn't have
that is
airplanes.
the one that did not have a flying scene.
Well, it kind of fits because it's supposed to be kind of feudal era Japan.
Yeah. Well, Kiki's Delivery Service was kind of 1950s Europe. And hey, we have a witch in here. Because nothing stops him about realism anyway.
Yeah.
But
this
was
his most realistic film. Aside from the dream sequences, but again, dream sequences, so those are naturally excluded from the whole thing.
So Miyazaki found the irony in a man who wanted just to create something beautiful, like an artist would like to paint paintings. But he's doing this thing which is beautiful that is also supporting the evil, at that time, government of Japan, that's about to go bomb China and later on, Pearl Harbor and basically invade everybody.
And Russia and Indonesia.
And Korea still hates them. And, all the Asians, it just is a rule of thumb. Asians kind of hate other Asians, largely thanks to World War II and similar conflicts.
Yeah. The Cold War really didn't help matters either.
I guess not, no.
Yeah, but anyways, so it really hammers in one of the oldest lessons, no matter how much you advance, there are still going to be people who will use scientific discoveries or even artistic creations for evil.
Yeah, that does happen.
We were talking about the Manhattan Project, how there were people who at the beginning were all like, yeah, let's stop Hitler, stop him from getting the bomb. Mm-hmm. But then in the end, there were a bunch of them who were just doing this because they loved the scientific discovery.
And actually, as far as that goes, that would be okay, except the part which came later was that the atomic bomb didn't only end the war, but it led to the nuclear arms race and the threat of global annihilation. And that's when people felt not only, oh, I'm just in it for the science, but, oh, crap, maybe I shouldn't be in this at all. And I'm worried now that I may have risked the safety of the world in the long run. These things, are so complicated and so I want to say remorseful in a way, tragic in a way, where it can be beautiful in one sense and then deadly in another.
The whole movie reinforced
Ironic,
the idea that Jiro just wanted to make beautiful airplanes, and you could see it. Like, he was looking at fighters and bombers, and he was like, "Oh, it's beautiful engineering," and pointing out like little ways that these could be better, like
flush rivets
and spring-loaded
hatches,
and
a lot about lines. I hardly really know what airplane designers mean when they say that, but I know they have an eye for this that I don't. Like, yes, the lines. They have great lines. I'm sure it has something to do with aerodynamics and complex things that I can only get a very vague feel for.
Our job is to make fun of stuff on the internet.
Yeah, no, but
we are not qualified.
But that's just kind of it, though. Like, that this guy understands so much more than you do. So you get a hint of the scope of it that way.
And he has these grand dreams of flying and making these things that fly.
He talks to Caproni a lot, who's this famous Italian designer. So we have basically.
Well, he doesn't really talk to Caproni.
Talks to the dream of Caproni, but So to summarize the plot briefly, basically Jiro moves up and up through the ranks of the company that designs aircraft for the military. In the meantime, he meets Naoko, or he meets her once in the beginning at the Great Kato earthquake, and then meets her again.
That was probably the single coolest moment in the movie.
That was a cool moment.
It was someone in the Chicago Tribune described it as even though this is the most realistic of the Miyazaki films, the Earth still feels like it's writhing up and down like a grand dragon or monster.
I remember seeing that in the trailer, and each row of houses just jumps up and jumps down again, in an unrealistic way, but that's how it felt. It was a terrible calamity at the time, and the fire has a voice. I love that the distant fire is just like this, like it's a demon or something. Yeah. They did a lot of that using human voice to do sound effects here and there, and it just gave everything this weird, cool feeling that brought some symbolism into it.
I didn't think that the bus sound was best handled. Bus. I think they left that in as a placeholder, and then they forgot to take it out. Buses all go bus, because buses are our Pokemon.
Yep. You know what? Cat Bus would probably do that if he could speak.
Don't bring up Cat Bus again. God, that thing was like
Cat Bus.
That was nightmare fuel.
Do not go to the Studio Ghibli Museum and watch one of their short films. They have Cat Blimp.
It can cross oceans. It cannot be stopped.
So basically, he meets this girl Naoko, and meets her again, and they fall in love and get married. And she has
tuberculosis,
terminal tuberculosis, right? Which I think Miyazaki's mother may have had that, actually. And if I think about it now, I have to go look that up. But I seem to remember he had some personal connection to the disease before he was in animation at all. Like from his childhood or something, because it came up in My Neighbor Totoro as well, that the mom had. I think it was still tuberculosis in that case. So in a sense, it's a simple story, but it's got so much depth to it. Like, there's not a lot of plot twists, It's not like, aha, and now we've discovered the secret of the evil thingamajig, and now we have to grace over here and save the world. And he's just this guy living his life. It's a biopic,
This is probably the single most accessible of all the Miyazaki films.
In a certain manner of accessible, yeah. And I know you mean.
I'm thinking of my parents who'd be like, oh, why are they doing this? Is this some sort of thing in Japan? Although, why aren't they suddenly talking like an old Jewish couple? Maybe if they just became doctors like their parents asked. No, I honestly have no idea where the Jewish thing came from. But anyways,
I think you learned that from Jon Stewart.
Part of it, maybe. But anyways, it goes in. It has real people acting in realistic ways.
Yeah, and it's just so full of this sort of one. Well, several feelings, but they all mix together in this one sort of simple thing that somehow still deserves to be.
You know who Nose Guy reminds me of?
What?
Third Doctor.
Okay, so Nose Guy was this German who showed up who had a big nose. And I guess
seriously,
look up
the Third Doctor.
Maybe.
No, seriously, do it. He even drove around in a old-fashioned yellow car, just like the one he escaped in. He named it Bessie.
Yeah, I remember Bessie. Anyway, but so there's some people who have complained that this movie is not anti-war enough because our protagonist, who's very sympathetic, to the audience, is a freaking warplane designer. But if you look a little closer, this film is very anti-war. It's just subtle about it. And it's genius to be so subtle about it because that's how it felt living in pre-World War II Japan. You didn't know you were on the evil side of history, or you tried not to think about it if you ever did become aware. And speaking of which, Nose Guy has this great little speech. He and G are off at this sort of resort, and he says, this is a good place for forgetting things. Make a war with China. Forget it. Set up a puppet state in Manchuria. Forget it. Quit the League of Nations. Forget it. And that's what everyone's doing. Everyone is constantly forgetting or ignoring or suppressing the knowledge of the fact that they're headed into ruin. Or I guess you didn't know in advance you were going to lose the war, but you could still know, hey, we're going to go bomb China for no apparent reason?
They wanted the resources.
Oh, yeah, but
because their country was poor.
As far as a moral reason are concerned.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying the Chinese don't deserve this shit. What did they do?
They became communists later.
I'm not going to blame anybody about what they did later.
Because Japan had future time technology.
And in any case, that would still be a problem of the government and not the people of China. But you notice in the whole movie, the movie never gives you any reason why any of Japan's enemies should deserve to be attacked. The Chinese, for instance, which are kind of their primary target, are never depicted as like backward peoples that need to be uplifted by invaders. They're never depicted as evil people that need to be destroyed. There's no excuse given at all. It's just, I guess we're going to have a war with these people off screen. We're not even going to talk about them, but eventually we're going to kill millions of them. You know this if you're a student of history. Millions of Chinese died. And they didn't deserve it.
Yeah, it's known as the Rape of Nanking.
Well, that was one particular incident, yeah.
Okay, but yeah, the treatment of the Chinese in World War II is one of the single most heinous, overlooked acts of history.
Yeah. Basically,
look it up.
You have the Nazis on their level of evil, and the Japanese were not that bad, but they were bad. They were bad.
They
were
the
Chinese.
Extremely bad.
But leading up to that, again, you didn't know you were part of the evil empire. You were living your life and eating your noodles and looking at your mackerel bones and designing beautiful airplanes. Mm-hmm. And that's how evil happens, at least some of the time, is it comes in very subtly. But there's all these lines.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Each action individually may seem like it is necessary. But added together, they create a darkness that ensnares us all and makes us unable to escape.
Yeah, more or less.
I just have to breathe again.
but
one of his actually better quotes instead of one of his silly quotes.
There's this bit where Honjo is saying, with the amount of money we're paying the Germans for their technology, we could feed all the hungry people in Japan. And that little almost offhand comment tells you that their government is insane. Like, holy shit, you could feed your own people if you just stopped getting ready to attack everyone else. But then it's passed over, and we do the rest of the movie almost as if he hadn't said it. Similarly, they see a guy when they're visiting Germany being chased down by the secret police. And they specifically use the term secret police, not just like, oh, he's a criminal or something, maybe he robbed a bank. No, secret police, meaning maybe he's Jewish or he's just, criticized
and
Hitler the other day.
And if you notice, there was they were like beating him up later.
Yeah, you could see it. You could see the silhouette of them beating the crap out of him.
Quite honestly, I thought it was something else going on.
What do you think was going on?
Kristallnacht.
I forget that word.
The Night of Broken Glass. It's a day when suddenly the Nazi Party rose up and just went apeshit over all of Germany. Jewish-run businesses were targeted and destroyed. Arson happened. They broke all the windows of the Jewish-run businesses. I thought that light might have been flame from the fire originally.
Yeah, well,
still, it would have been.
It could still be a related thing. That could be a Jewish guy, and this just isn't the one big night, but it's a night, in which somebody decided to persecute a Jew.
And heck, the doctor, what is his name?
Yonkers.
Dr. Yonkers, the Captain Big Nose, Captain Third Doctor was all like, "Yeah, Dr. Yonkers, he fights the hand that feeds him."
Yeah, he must be having doubts about, he fights Hitler's government. He went around to clarify, and he said, "Yeah, the Nazis are a bunch of hoodlums."
Which I said to Sonic, that's probably the first and last time anyone has ever described Nazis as hoodlums. Seriously, there's two words that there's a word that describes the Nazis, and generally you do not use hoodlums to describe them. That brings to mind, those wacky kids. Yeah. Oh, those wacky Nazis. Yeah, well, then what will they do next?
He did go on to say, Japan will blow up, and so will Germany. He switched to a slightly stronger version of phraseology there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that line too, Japan will blow up, which it will basically, especially certain parts of it.
Yeah. Hell, the firebombing of Tokyo.
That was a big deal. And then, of course, there's Hiroshima and Nagasaki to bring back the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
Which, I just randomly sometimes
goes back to Germany. Albert Einstein had to flee from
That's true, yeah. Fled from Germany and wound up on our side. Well, not on the Manhattan Project, but whatever.
Interestingly enough, after Germany lost the war, they had sent out one last thing to do. A submarine containing all their notes on nuclear
research,
and it was heading for Japan. Fortunately, it was stopped.
Okay.
But, yeah. So that ties to the Manhattan Project, and they were sending it to Japan, so that ties in both things.
I see. But, Japan will blow up. And, maybe we should stop that from happening. No, but no one's stopping it from happening. No one's like, oh, shit, you're right. We're headed down the wrong road. We should protest or something. And you also sense that it would be really freaking hard to protest when there's a secret police in Japan, too, that's hunting down Jiro for no good reason. We know he hasn't done anything wrong except supporting the government, but they're not mad about that. They're not mad about him being such a good soldier.
Unless, he just randomly, unless talking to this German big nose guy.
Which is possibly the reason for it. But right there, it's still a violation of his liberties that they wouldn't just question him. Jiro's boss was saying, many of my friends have been arrested, and they're just taken away. Permanently, or was the implication at least.
Never mentioned what happens to them.
Yeah.
But that's partially because, it's not the story of Jiro's boss's friends. It's the story of Jiro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he's in that world in which these sorts of things can happen. And no one really turns aside. And Caproni makes a couple of comments about, airplanes are not meant for weapons of war. They are meant for... for beauty and for carrying passengers and stuff. But we're going to build this bomber anyway because that's what we're getting paid to do.
You want to know the really sad thing about the Wright brothers? At least one of them, I can't remember which one. It was the one who lived the longest.
Okay.
He's kept predicting that the airplane would make war obsolete because it would make it too destructive for war to continue. And he maintained this right up until he died, just before World War II.
Yeah. Every time someone invents a big new weapon, they think that. Alfred Nobel thought that maybe TNT would make war obsolete. Other people thought nuclear weapons would make war obsolete. And granted, we didn't actually have a nuclear war per se, but we have had regular war. I am glad for that. Good job, humanity, for not blowing yourself up, or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Also, thanks for not using the Tsar Bomba. That's just a whole different reason, but yeah.
What's the Tsar Bomba?
The single largest nuclear explosion ever detonated by mankind.
When was that?
It was in Russia, and I don't know.
Okay, well.
But it was something like 50 megatons.
I'm glad it didn't drop on anybody's head.
Yeah, when it exploded, windows 200 miles away were blown out.
Wow, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, so... Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of went crazy with those nukes for a while.
Yeah, but every time we come out with some new thing, we say, "Oh, it's going to make war obsolete."
And then it turns out stuff is more complicated than you thought.
There will always be war.
Hopefully it can get a little not as bad or something.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, heck, since World War II, ever since the fall of communism, wars have, I think, been decreasing in scale.
Yeah. general. I mean, like freaking Iraq sucked, but compare that to Vietnam, right?
Iraq and Afghanistan suck, but at least we're not doing huge, massive D-Day scale invasions and stuff.
Thankfully, we don't need to. Though, by the time this video comes out, there's a crisis in Crimea as of March 11th, and hopefully that all came to nothing. 2014. Hopefully it all worked out.
And hopefully the person listening to this isn't laughing at our stupidity at the ignorance of the radioactive wasteland that Russia has turned into.
God, I know. And you know what? I'll reflect on my own moral standing, if I may. I mean, America is not about to be all Nazi Germany or Imperial Japan and go invade and freaking conquer the world. Like, oh my gosh, the Axis powers in World War II were just so megalomaniac about it. But we do have, freaking innocent people still in Guantanamo Bay. And we do have a bunch of these drone strikes have killed innocent people. And yeah, I can identify a little with Jiro in the sense of like, if I even think about this stuff, what could I do about it? I mean, in my case, I'm not employed in the military or dropping the actual bombs that happen to hit innocent people. But you feel I'm sort of connected, and that's why I've made some donations to, civil rights groups and stuff to say, please stop doing this shit to innocent people. It's something we all have to struggle with, unless you happen to live in a perfect nation somewhere, which I don't know if we have any of those. But yeah, that's something. And then we should get to Naoko, who has this terminal condition, and there's so much symbolism when she has a blood or a lung hemorrhage.
She's just vomiting blood everywhere, and it's all over her this really beautiful painting that she's been working on the whole time.
Disease sort of destroying the beauty of life, or having that potential anyway. And then he's on the train. Jiro's on the train racing to go meet her. And he's got this pencil and paper, and he's doing calculations for his airplane. And we see tears falling onto the page.
And you can tell it's not doing the okay, it might be a little bit doing the calculations. It's just something. Half of him is just doing this to keep his mind off the fact that his wife his fiancée could be dead.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then later she survives the initial bit, but they eventually come to realize like this is terminal. She has to leave the sanatorium. I can only presume that it wasn't helping. Off screen they were like, oh, we checked your vital signs and the sanatorium treatment isn't doing much for you, which apparently revolves around breathing mountain air. I guess that's better for you somehow.
Yeah, well, that sort of thing has been a known treatment for various diseases and stuff. Oh, if you go up into the mountains, it has healing air.
Well, maybe it helps.
And sometimes, it does help. But
I don't really know much about tuberculosis. But she comes home, and there's this great scene where he's holding her hand with one hand. She's lying down. He's got his left hand holding her hand, and his right hand is doing calculations for the fighter plane. And he's torn between these two worlds. I mean, the fighter plane itself has two sides to it because it's art, but it's also deadly. But thinking of the deadly side just for a moment, there's love and daily life, and then there's being a part of the evil empire.
And what's even more symbolic?
Yeah.
Both sides are tinged with both life and death. His plane, his life's work, his dream, his ambition, this thing he's been working his whole life towards, is now being turned into a weapon of war by his government.
Yeah.
And the woman he loves more than anything else in the universe, she's dying.
She's dying too. It's just it's all over the place. Evil infects our day-to-day lives.
Okay, I wouldn't say evil.
Well, what I mean though, I mean tuberculosis you could say this is an evil thing which has happened.
It's not the same evil.
No, it's not the same evil.
Like the government isn't infecting people with tuberculosis.
No. But what I'm saying is you don't live in a perfect world, and you would wish your airplanes were purely for art, and you would wish that your wife was well and healthy, and stuff happens outside of your control. It wasn't Jiro's decision that caused the government to become imperialistic.
That we know of.
And it wasn't anything he did that caused his wife to get tuberculosis, but it happened to him. In the case of...
Now, my plan to set Japan on an imperial conqueror route and infect my wife with tuberculosis is going according to plan.
No. In the case of the fighter plane, he could quit that project, and I believe he should have. In real life, he should have at some point said, you know what, I realize this is not right. And he didn't. And I understand, though, Miyazaki feeling sympathy for the guy, even though he did help to eventually kill some Chinese people and other people as well.
American people and
I just don't know. I don't know exactly where if the Zero was used in what battles or whatever. But yeah, probably American people. A lot of them. All right, so that's probably true.
Although I kept saying,
which, by the way, my grandfather was out there. He was at Iwo Jima and all this, so he probably saw some Zeros at that time. Who knows?
I know my grandparents fought in Korea, so
there you go.
They didn't see Zeros.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know how much. Although I do have to say, maybe you should stop painting the symbol of Japan on all of your planes when your symbol is a giant bullseye.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's like you're kind of asking for it. I mean, at the end, Caproni says, "None of them came back. All of them were shot down." Well, you were kind of asking for it when painting a bullseye on each and every plane.
No.
I mean, and I get why they do it. It's the same reason why we put the flag of the United States of America.
Yeah. And actually, I think in general, shots to the wings are less hurtful to a plane than shots to the fuselage.
Yeah, but they had the target on the fuselage, too.
Yeah, I guess they did. Yeah, and some of them at least. But
unless you're flying in the Death Trap mobiles that Hiro designed, or
Jiro, but
the other guy.
No, Honjo.
Honjo, he had the bombers, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's
true.
Yeah, the bombers were they were the death traps.
Yeah, all you need to do is shoot them twice, and they explode in a giant fireball. Those were his actual words.
Yeah, pretty much. But all the symbolism. I saw some group of doctors in Japan had complained about the film because there's so much smoking in it. Now, first off, smoking was realistic for that time. There was lots of smoking. Nobody knew it caused cancer, and if they did, freaking addiction is hard to beat anyway. But I love the symbolism of it, probably that Miyazaki hadn't even thought of. But
it's Miyazaki. He probably thought of it.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. But everyone is smoking, and they don't know or fail to recognize that smoking causes cancer and a whole bunch of other ailments, and it's very bad for you in the long term, even though it's pleasant right now. And many of those same people are helping with the war effort, and that's their normal job, and it's fine, and they kind of like the work. But in the long run, it has terrible, terrible consequences. It is infested with that cancer-causing agent, which is, in this case, fascism or whatever you call it when it happens in Japan.
Well, that was imperialism.
Imperialism. All right.
Fascism is something.
It's pretty. They were allies with Germany. It's fairly similar.
Yeah. Okay.
Invade everybody.
I do think that maybe he could have not done smoking. Spewing lung irritants into the same room as his wife.
He did
who had
offer
the lung
not
disease.
to do it. Yeah, and she said just whatever, smoke here. Don't leave. Or I guess they didn't discuss the third option, which is stay here and hold off on smoking for another few hours
until I fall asleep.
Yeah, whatever.
Because clearly the airplane designer is incapable of thinking, maybe I should wait 5 minutes before smoking.
Let it slide.
Away from my wife.
Let it slide.
Who's sick. My voice is squeaking. Okay, I can't do any higher than that.
Yeah, don't do that. And she leaves. And she knows that she's dying, and she wants to be remembered as she was. I love this because when I first saw the movie, there's a moment which is the last moment Jiro sees his wife. And when I first saw the movie, I didn't know that was the last moment. He was just walking away. And on the second viewing, I'm like, oh, that was the last moment. And then I realized that's what it must have been like for him, At his last moment, he didn't know it was the end. And then later realized, oh, crap, that was the end, You were confused a little bit. You were like, wait, is she leaving? Because she said in the letter, I'm going to the sanatorium. And you're like, oh, is she not dying? Is she
I thought she was
divorcing
him because she couldn't stand the strain of, I mean, she said, his sister said earlier, she's left alone all day. Mm-hmm. Maybe she wasn't used to that and she just wanted to up and leave.
No. So the deal of it was, because if you look at all her dialogue with him, is clearly in love. So the deal of that scene was like, okay, There's a 99% chance I'm going to die. I'll try and grab the 1% by going to the sanatorium, but I know they probably can't help me either. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave suddenly so that you don't have to see me wither and die at the sanatorium. I don't want you to watch me in pain. Which is...
You make me sad.
Yeah, I know.
Stop
such a
doing that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. So this is a fictionalized biography of the real life Jiro, and as I understand it, all the airplane stuff was true, and his personal life was made up. So I don't know what happened to any real life he may have had or whatever, but it made for a wonderful story. And, and very symbolic.
So wait,
anyway.
Did he really see a dream?
Caproni? I'm guessing that one is entirely made up. Because Miyazaki had to throw in his Miyazaki touch in there, He had to do weird things.
I barely noticed any of the Miyazaki hair, though.
Yeah.
When people in Miyazaki films...
The hair gets expressive,
The hair inflates. It's like they're trying to go Super Saiyan, but they're not really doing it.
Yeah. Super Saiyan with, every emotion and not just anger. Just whoosh. I love these freaking details. When he first meets his future wife, and they're on a train, she's 15 or something at the time, maybe a little younger. She speaks French. She's recited some French poetry or whatever. And your military alliance is going to bomb the crap out of France later on. This is something
they're going to conquer France, and then half of France will be under the rule of Germany, and the rest is going to be under the rule of Vichy, which is a German puppet state.
Yeah. So, you are destroying something that you yourself appreciate, in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not quite as directly related to Japan, but still, related. They were all Axis powers.
And eventually, no one says anything in French. It's all speaking in German. Did you notice that?
Well... Yeah, wait, they weren't in France at any other time, so that makes sense.
Whatever.
Actually, that was a little confusing. Whenever they were in Germany, they would speak some in German and some in what we hear as English in the dub, which I presume is Japanese, because they're Japanese people. And you weren't entirely clear if everyone was bilingual or if it was just partially translated for our sake, or not that it really mattered. There's also this one little moment where they're in the hangar just before they talk to Yonkers, or the soldier talks to Yonkers for them, where Honjo has his back to the camera and clearly moves his mouth a little bit for a couple more syllables and doesn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught that even on my first viewing. I was like, he was supposed to say something right there. But memorable characters, though, all around. It's so important to do big things with small notes, as I've been saying already. But, when they're in university and Honjo says to that one guy... just leave it alone, freshman, and get me a cigarette. You immediately know his relationship to, the entire freshman class, practically, or at least as far as this classroom is concerned. Or freaking, when Jiro buys a shortcake, and he's like, shortcake again? How do you stay alive? And the next shot is him eating Jiro's shortcake. And we whisper to each other I'm taking the bullet for you, man.
I will save you.
And then Jiro's making tea or something, and he just takes Jiro's tea and drinks it. Jiro doesn't even care. Little things just tell you much about a character. Jiro's boss, the short guy, was so fun just to watch whenever he did anything.
Imagine J. Jonah Jameson, except warmer and actually cares about his employees.
Yeah.
So not J. Jonah Jameson.
Well, he gave off that vibe at first. Yeah, he's sort of, everything's late and I'm irritated and work harder. And this is your desk. It's important. Nobody likes it. Maybe you will. Freaking describing a desk becomes a memorable moment in a Miyazaki film. This is the genius of the man, right?
Yes.
And then when they get married, they it's almost like eloping in the sense that it's sort of impromptu.
Yeah, he announces the whole thing with he announces Jiro.
Yeah.
So he goes, so his wife gives this flowing and glowing
She
description.
came down from the mountains to be with her beloved. She has given up everything for him. What say you?
He's a chuckle-headed idiot.
Without even a home to call his own. But if that's what she wants, she can have him. Which is funny. And then even funnier was like 3 minutes later, when at the end of the ceremony,
he can't speak.
He's like crying.
Oh, and the best part is he's like 2 feet tall.
And he's like 2 feet tall or whatever.
He's like a real life Chippy character.
He just at every or when Jiro mentions they're running from the secret police. Oh, I need to get my mail from my home, and mentions he has a fiance, and his boss and his boss's boss both start laughing. Like, I thought you would marry an airplane. Like, I didn't know you were human.
And he just tells him, "Shut up, you're mean."
Yeah, hidoyo. Or
you
whatever.
guys are assholes.
Yeah. So
thought you'd marry an airplane. Little did they know that his wife after Naoko was a transformer.
Yeah, so many details that way.
It's a Miyazaki film.
It's a
Made
Miyazaki
of
film.
details.
He knows how to do it, how to be subtle about it.
If this is his last film, he's ending it on a high note.
He is. I mean, I guess every note was a high note.
Okay, but
yeah, he's.
If this is his last movie, he's ending it on a high note. He's ending it with one of the best films he's ever made.
You know that last bit where in the dream sequence again, and he says one more goodbye to Naoko, and she says, "You must live." And think of that, because the whole film we've been saying, "The wind rises, we must live," which is basically like the world is beautiful, let's experience it. Is my interpretation anyway.
Yeah, you actually had to explain that to me, because I thought it was like
the wind is threatening us or something.
Yeah, we must live. But like the tide is rising, like it's flooding.
Yeah, no.
Because that's the only time I've really heard.
Yeah, no. But I'm pretty sure it's about the beauty of the world, and which incidentally makes aircraft fly and things like that.
Oh my God.
Helps them to fly.
Before the movie started, I said, okay, fair warning. If there's no one else in the theater and it gets boring, at boring parts, I will start singing "Everything Is Awesome."
And you did at that one point. It wasn't actually a boring part, but
yeah, it was just
it was just after the earthquake and everything was
destroyed wasteland. So immediately I began doing that.
Everything is awesome.
But yeah, that's the sort of spirit that The Wind Rises, Let Us Live gives out. Except a little more formal in your case.
More poetic, yeah. not the sort of silly Lego style.
Everything is awesome.
What was I going to say? The winner, you must live. And in the dream sequence at the end, she's dead. And she's saying, you must live. Like, I know you've lost me, but try and find some beauty in the world despite that loss. And it suddenly has another layer of meaning.
Plus, it enables him to get... And I mean no disrespect when I say this. It enables him to get back on the dating scene. I mean no disrespect.
I know.
It's saying, don't stay hung up on me.
Yeah.
Possibly find someone else who makes you happy too.
See, you should have used that phrasing. The phrase dating scene is what made it funny.
Okay, well, I couldn't think of it until after I had said that.
And then the very last bit is
Caproni inviting him for wine.
Yeah. Which seems a little odd at first. Like, we had all our epic stuff, and you must live. You think you would have ended it there. You must live, or I love you, or something, and then it fades to black. Mm-hmm. And then it's actually a few seconds after that, and Capone says, "Well, since we're still dreaming, come to my house and we'll have some wine." And that seems a little incongruous at first, until you realize, no, wait, that's exactly how it happens in real life. You have whatever big, important moment, and then you go on with the rest of your day or the rest of your life.
And get drunk.
Not get drunk,
hopefully. Get drunk.
But you know what I mean?
Well, you just saw your dead wife. Let's get drunk and forget about this.
Like literally, if you go to a funeral, for instance, if at some point you leave the funeral and then, next day or next week or something, you go to work or school or whatever your life is, and you haven't forgotten what's happened, it's still with you, but it's in that subtle way, at least it can be. And so Jiro is still carrying all this history with him, and yet goes on with his life and keeps on living because he must, because he ought to, because there is still beauty in the world. Wow, all this stuff just kind of comes together.
Honestly, that this review would be really short. We'd just go, yeah, this is a good movie. It's a Miyazaki film. Go see it. I don't think we have anything really to say.
With Miyazaki, there's so much to point out and analyze.
And we're capable of doing more things than just screaming at bad movies.
Yeah, Miyazaki movies are wonderful. They're all wonderful, by the way, except for Goro Miyazaki, who on his first debut created Tales from Earthsea, which shall forever be known as the bad Ghibli. But it's okay because his second film was actually good.
Which one was that?
That was from Up on Poppy Hill that we saw earlier. The one with they were trying to save the Latin Quarter. It was the building that was going to be torn down.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's Miyazaki's son. That's Goro. So yeah, Studio Ghibli has a future, even if Miyazaki is retiring. We hope he's not really retired. We hope in a year from now he's like, "Hey, I've got this movie idea." He might.
I got this movie idea. It's about a guy who's doomed to internally make movies and can't stop no matter how much he wants to retire because his creative genius will force him to ever create more and more movies. Make it stop. It'll be debuting in summer of 2016.
This is a high bar to aim for, but I want to be up in that Miyazaki territory. I want to make awesome stuff for like decades on end and just keep doing that forever, hopefully.
He himself said it. He only got 10 years.
Well, Caproni said it. Miyazaki's been doing it for more than 10 years.
Yeah, well...
Which I kind of feel like he's like, hey, I'm better than Caproni.
One of them is an Italian who has wine, and the other is a cartoonist. Who are you going to believe?
One of them is a dream sequence.
Yeah, what's your point?
Yeah.
I make magic airplanes that fly even when science says no.
Yeah. So many things.
See this movie.
Yeah, wonderful movie. See all the Miyazaki movies. Just freaking anything Studio Ghibli, Ghibli, I can spell.
Just look it up and look up who made it, and then go from there.
They're just all freaking so good, except Tales from Earthsea. But oh well, and everyone has a mistake once.
And there are probably some people who like Tales from Earthsea.
There probably are, and there are probably a few people who don't like. I don't know, one of them for some reason. I don't know why you wouldn't like it though. Freaking even the ones that even where Miyazaki himself feels like he didn't like the ending to Nausicaa, and I was like, that was a brilliant ending. What are you talking about?
How did Nausicaa end again?
Should I spoil that in a review of a different movie? Maybe we'll review Nausicaa next. I don't know.
Maybe some other time, but
yeah. But they're all wonderful, and this is wonderful too.
Was that the mass-produced thing?
What do you mean mass-produced thing?
Mass-produced.
No, they did not have Evangelions in Nausicaa.
No. Okay, you know what? I called it the mass-produced Evangelion because that's what it looked like to me.
I don't even know. We'll discuss this in a moment. But speaking of Eva, in the Japanese version, Jiro is voiced by Anno, the director of Eva. Yeah, his first major voice role.
Nice.
That's a thing.
That is a thing.
Yeah.
That is.
Who actually had worked for Miyazaki on Nausicaa. That's how he got his big start into the animation world. He drew the Giant Warrior. That was his job.
Yeah, the Giant Warrior. I kept calling it the mass-produced Evangelion.
Oh, okay. It's a freaking giant warrior.
Well, yes, but we were trying to dance around spoilers, and I was trying to ask you a question. So pardon me for trying to.
All right. Well, all right. This clearly we've run out of things to say about The Wind Rises. It's wonderful. Go see it. I think that's about it.
Yep. So, anyways, I'm Sith King,
and I'm Sonic Sons.
We're signing off.